All right, let's jump right in. Imagine this. You're stuck on a desert island.
Cliché, right. I know, I know. But stick with me.
You get to pick one book to take with you. You're going to be there a while.
Would it be something to help you escape? Like a thriller?
Or something practical to help you survive, like a guide to, say, shipbuilding.
Interesting you frame it that way. See, Robert Greene, in his lecture at SMU Dallas.
Which we're diving into today, by the way.
Right. So Greene argues that in the 21st century, we're all kind of stranded on a metaphorical desert island.
Okay, no actual shipwrecks, right. I mean, what's he really saying?
He's saying all those old school ideas about stability, the job security, the predictable career paths, the solid support systems, they're gone. Like poof, vanished.
You think about how our parents, maybe grandparents even, how they had that one job for like their entire career.
My dad, he had that. One company. 40 years. That's what Greene's dad had too.
Total job security. These days, it's like everyone's hopping between jobs every couple of years.
It's a whole different world out there. It's almost unrecognizable, even compared to like a decade ago.
So much competition. Industry's changing overnight.
It's easy to feel lost.
Mm.
Like you're adrift, tossed around, no control. Greene says we almost need that metaphorical shipbuilding guide just to navigate.
To build our own stability.
Yeah.
Greene's not just talking about surviving, though, right? He's talking about mastering your destiny in all this chaos.
He is. But where do we even start? If we're all on this metaphorical island, bombarded by change, what's step one?
What's the first tool we break out from Greene's metaphorical shipbuilding kit?
He says it starts by looking inward. Greene believes everyone has these primal inclinations.
Primal inclinations.
Yeah, think of them as like these innate passions, interests, that kind of thing. They often show up when you're really young, too.
Okay, so like those child prodigy stories, it always seems almost unfair how naturally talented they are, you know?
Absolutely.
Like Einstein. The story goes that when he was 5, he got a compass as a gift.
A compass, right.
And he was obsessed. But it wasn't just a toy to him. He became fixated on those invisible forces driving it. And guess what?
What's that?
Foreshadowing. That little compass pointed toward his entire life's work.
Okay, but Greene's not just talking about the Einsteins of the world, right?
Nope, not at all. He argues everyone's born with unique, I don't know, call it DNA, brain wiring, whatever. But the point is, it suggests we each have this inherent purpose.
It's like we're each tuned to a specific frequency from day one.
Exactly. And those frequencies, those primal inclinations, they're not random.
Greene says they're like clues on a treasure map, pointing us towards our own past, the path of least resistance for our talents.
Right, the path where we can really thrive. But, and here's the catch, those inclinations, they can get drowned out as we go through life.
It's true. It's like our inner compass gets buried under a pile of shoulds, all the shoulds.
Oh, I know it.
Greene talks about the education system, how rigid it can be.
And parents pushing us toward those safe careers. Even just trying to fit in with your friends, all that stuff muffles that inner voice.
It's true. And what happens, we end up chasing external validation instead of intrinsic motivation. You know?
It's like we're building someone else's ship instead of our own. We're sailing to the wrong island. But this is where Greene throws us a lifeline, right?
He does.
He brings up these real-life examples. People who either embraced or totally ignored this whole life's task idea.
And their stories show us how this mastery thing actually works.
It goes from being this abstract idea to something, well, something we can actually learn from.
Right, a framework, a map, something like that.
So Greene gives us this map to navigate our own metaphorical islands. And one of his most powerful examples,
Let's hear it.
scientist Michael Faraday. Talk about someone who seemed destined for obscurity, but then he ends up changing the world.
I love Faraday's story. It's fascinating precisely because he really didn't have a leg up in life.
Yeah.
At all.
No silver spoon for Faraday.
Not even close. Born in late 18th century England, abject poverty. His dad was a blacksmith, but often too sick to work, and they had a family of 12 to feed.
12?
12 kids. So imagine the kind of uphill battle Faraday faced from day one.
It wasn't uphill. It was like trying to climb Mount Everest barefoot. Plus, he had almost zero formal education. Back then, to pursue science, to even dream of accessing labs, journals, the intellectual elite.
Unheard of, especially for someone from his background.
And yet, this is Michael Faraday we're talking about, one of the most renowned scientists of his time.
The guy's discoveries in electromagnetism, they basically paved the way for the electric motor.
Revolutionized scientific thought.
And even laid the groundwork for Einstein's theory of relativity.
Okay, hold up. How? Was he just ridiculously lucky in the right place at the right time? Or what's the secret sauce here?
See, that's what's so great about Greene. He dismantles this whole pure chance myth.
Yeah.
Because if you really look at Faraday's life, you see this relentless curiosity, this inner drive that just wouldn't quit.
No matter how impossible things seemed.
Exactly.
It's like that saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And even without realizing it, Faraday was preparing his mind from a young age.
Absolutely. And this is a perfect example of those primal inclinations bubbling to the surface. Greene explains that Faraday's family, they had this deep belief that God's presence was woven into, well, everything.
Okay, a bit unconventional maybe.
It is what it is, but from about 6 or 7 years old, Faraday was captivated by this idea.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He'd look at the clouds, the plants, everything, and wonder, how is God's presence showing up here?
I can practically see young Faraday just buzzing with these questions, driving his parents crazy, trying to unravel all the universe's mysteries.
Oh, yeah. And it's like that childlike awe never left him.
That's amazing.
It is. And that inquisitiveness, that drive to know.
Yeah.
It led him, quite accidentally, you might say, to a local bookstore.
No way.
It was his first real encounter with books beyond the Bible. He was, I don't know, he was hooked.
It's like he stepped into that bookstore and bam, that primal inclination, that thirst for knowledge went into overdrive.
Exactly. And the shop owner, he recognized that spark in young Faraday, took him under his wing.
Oh, that's nice.
He started as an errand boy, you know, but his work ethic, so impressive, he was offered an apprenticeship as a bookbinder.
Which, back then, that was a pretty big deal, right?
Oh, absolutely. Meant security, a respectable trade, the whole 9 yards.
But Faraday, he wasn't content with just binding those books.
He wanted in on the ideas inside.
He wanted to unlock those secrets. And again, this is where preparation meets opportunity, am I right?
100%. Because the bookstore owner, seeing this hunger for knowledge in Faraday, he does something incredible.
What's that?
He tells Faraday he can borrow any book he wants, urged him to explore the entire collection.
Wow. That's more than just generosity. It's like this bookseller sensed something big was coming, like he was opening a door to, well, destiny or something.
Right. And Faraday, he dove headfirst into that world, devoured books on science, especially those about electricity, chemistry.
Remember that early fascination? How God's presence was embedded in everything?
It's like that childhood wonder transformed into this fascination with invisible forces, like electricity, magnetism, you name it.
And it's not like he was just casually reading these books either. Greene mentioned that book, Improvement of the Mind.
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
That book became Faraday's blueprint for self-education. He took that advice to heart.
He did.
Conducted his own experiments.
Attended lectures.
Even taught himself to draw so he could record his observations. This guy was a self-made learning machine.
He really was. And, you know, it was at one of those lectures that he encountered the work of Humphrey Davy.
Davy?
Yeah, Humphrey Davy. He was basically the rock star chemist in England at the time.
Okay, got it.
And Faraday, he was blown away by Davy's genius, for sure, but also a little intimidated, you know.
Makes sense.
He realized that to really excel, he needed to break into that inner circle, find a mentor, someone like Davy.
So what did he do?
Well, Faraday did what any ambitious young person would do. Launched a full-on, I don't know what you'd call it, charm offensive.
Love it.
He sends Davy letters. He even put together this meticulously crafted compilation of notes and drawings, all from Davy's lectures. Talk about going the extra mile.
Wow. Dedication.
Right. And remember, this was while he was still working as a bookbinder's apprentice.
Super long days.
Oh, absolutely. But he never let go of that goal. And then, wouldn't you know it, as fate would have it, or maybe we should call it a pattern now, opportunity came knocking.
It always does.
Davy was temporarily blinded in a lab accident.
Soch.
Yeah, it's bad. And he needed an assistant. And of course, he remembered Faraday and that diligence, so he offered him the position.
Talk about being ready for that lucky break.
Seriously. Though, it gets even better.
Better how?
Faraday, in his, I don't know, eagerness to impress, he ended up accepting a lower position than Davy initially offered.
No way. Really?
All for the chance to work alongside his idol. He was willing to start at the bottom, cleaning equipment, tending fires, all just to be near this, like, fountain of knowledge.
I love that. It's that humility, that unwavering commitment. That's what makes Faraday different.
It is. And he dedicated years to being Davy's assistant, absorbing knowledge, mastering the craft, and eventually Well, his own brilliance, it just couldn't be contained.
He was bound to shine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Made groundbreaking discoveries, earned recognition from the Royal Institution, and, well, I mean, you know the rest. History was made.
What a story. It's inspiring, but here's what really struck me about Greene, using Faraday as an example. It's so tempting to chalk up stories like his to pure luck, you know?
I know, right? Oh, he was just lucky.
But Greene challenges us to look deeper. Because Faraday, from a young age, he was already aligning himself with his life's task, even if he couldn't have put it into words back then.
Which most of us can't at that age.
Right. So Faraday's story, it shows the power of aligning your actions with your innate inclinations.
And he wasn't given any handouts. Faced poverty, lack of education, constant setbacks.
Yet, through it all, he never lost sight of that fascination with the world, that drive to understand these invisible forces that shape our reality.
Exactly. It's incredible.
And that, I think, is one of Greene's most important messages. It's not enough to just, stumble upon your passion. You have to actively cultivate it, nurture it, and let it guide your decisions, especially when things get tough.
Oh, 100%. And Greene doesn't stop with these amazing historical figures either. He introduces us to, modern-day masters.
Oh, right.
People like Yoki Matsuoka.
Matsuoka.
She embodies this idea of pursuing one's life's task, but in our crazy, rapidly changing world.
I like her already. Okay, so who is she? Tell me everything.
Okay, so Matsuoka, her story is wild. She's like the embodiment of having a million different passions and not fitting neatly into any box.
I feel seen.
Greene actually calls her a mini Einstein at one point.
Pretty praise.
The highest. So growing up in Japan, she was fascinated by sports, especially the way the human body moved.
Okay, I'm with her so far.
But she was also fascinated by machines and technology.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're branching out.
Right. And on top of that,
Yeah.
loved math and science.
Okay, hold on. So she's basically good at everything. This is getting intimidating.
Right. But seriously, can you imagine trying to fit all that into a traditional career path, especially in a culture that really values specialization?
It's hard enough just picking a major in college.
I know. But Matsuoka, she had this intuition, this inner knowing. There had to be a way to combine all her interests. And luckily for her, she discovered a path that let her do just that.
Robotics.
Robotics, now we're talking. So that's how she brought all those passions together.
You'd think so, right? But, and here's where her story gets even more interesting. She realized that her engineering background wasn't enough.
It wasn't.
No. She wanted to understand the human side of movement, too, the connection between the brain and the body.
Yeah.
You know, the whole mind-body thing. Okay, yeah. Fascinating stuff.
Right. So instead of sticking with what she knew, she decided to get a PhD in neuroscience.
What?
Oh, yeah.
A PhD on top of everything else. Now that's dedication to merging your passions.
I know, right? It's
Well-
crazy. But that's what's so inspiring about Matsuoka's story. It's like she's saying, hey, embrace all those different parts of yourself,
Yeah.
even if they don't seem to fit together at first.
She's a true innovator. But did that leap into neuroscience pay off?
Oh, absolutely. It was a game changer. It allowed her to bridge this gap between engineering and the human body in a way that nobody else was doing.
Wow. So what did she do with that?
She designed this revolutionary prosthetic hand. It was so lifelike it became the gold standard.
Incredible.
It is.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Matsuoka. She's not content to just, rest on her laurels.
What do you mean?
She's constantly evolving, always pushing the boundaries.
Okay, I'm hooked. So what does she do next?
She made another leap, this time moving into a field called new robotics.
New robotics. Okay, now that's something I need a deep dive on. What is that?
I know, right? It's pretty wild. Basically, it focuses on building robots that can learn and adapt more like humans do.
Whoa.
Yeah, mind-blowing stuff. But the point is, she took that passion for understanding movement and really ran with it.
She really did. Matsuoka's like a real-life example of how to chart your own course.
Yeah.
Through this crazy 21st century career wilderness we're all navigating.
Exactly. And, both Faraday and Matsuoka's stories, they highlight a really crucial part of Greene's message.
Which is?
It's not just about finding your one true calling and then sticking with it no matter what. It's about being open to adapting,
Yeah.
evolving, maybe even reinventing yourself along the way.
But while still staying connected to those core passions.
100%.
Yeah.
The days of having that one job for life, they're gone. But that doesn't mean we're doomed to drift aimlessly forever.
So true. Thank goodness for that.
Right. Greene would argue that this actually gives us more freedom to craft a fulfilling career.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Because instead of climbing that predetermined ladder, we get to navigate by the stars,
I love that analogy.
We're constantly adjusting our sails, reading the winds, but always, always with that inner compass guiding us, those primal inclinations.
But navigating by the stars, that takes practice. What are some ways we can get better at spotting those opportunities? You know, those moments where our passions and skills actually align with what the world needs.
Greene calls those real opportunities. And they're not always obvious. They might be hidden in plain sight
Right.
or require you to connect the dots in a way that others haven't.
Yeah.
Think about Matsuoka, how she moved from robotics to green technology.
Okay, yeah.
That wasn't some random jump. It was an evolution driven by her core interests.
And a desire to make a real-world impact.
Exactly. But let's be honest, even with the best compass, even when we're following those primal inclinations, we all hit rough waters sometimes.
100%. It happens to the best of us. So what about those moments when we feel lost, unmotivated, or just plain stuck? I mean, Greene talks a lot about the importance of motivation, right?
He does, and he's really adamant about something.
What's that?
That motivation is not some fixed trait. Like some people are born with it, others aren't. It's not like that. It's a choice.
A choice. I like that.
It's a muscle. It gets stronger the more we use it.
So how do we work out that motivation muscle? How do we stay energized and focused, especially in this world that's constantly demanding our attention?
Greene would say,
Yeah.
by doing work that genuinely excites us. It's that simple.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True enough.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's about tapping into those activities that make us feel alive.
Mm.
The ones that challenge us, light up our brains, all of that. The more we align our actions with those innate talents and passions, the more energized and resilient we become.
I love that. And you know what? That reminds me of Faraday, how he taught himself to draw, just to record his scientific observations better. It wasn't a random hobby. It was him feeding that hunger for knowledge.
Exactly. It's about finding those ways to engage with your passions.
It's like rediscovering that childlike joy and letting it fuel everything. Our work, our relationships, our whole lives.
100%.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Robert Greene's ideas, what are the key takeaways here? What's the metaphorical shipbuilding guide he's offering us?
Okay, so first and foremost, embrace your uniqueness. Don't be afraid to be different, to pursue those interests that truly light you up, even if other people don't get it.
I love that. So often we're told to fit in, but Greene's saying the opposite. Be yourself, quirks and all.
Exactly. Those quirks, those passions, they're your superpower.
Okay, I am here for that message. What else?
Take some time to reflect. What were you passionate about as a kid? What gets you excited now? Those interests might seem random or all over the place,
It probably will be, knowing me.
but they're actually breadcrumbs, leading you back to your own unique path, your own version of mastery.
I'm gonna have to spend some time thinking about that. It's about tuning out the noise of the world, isn't it? And tuning back into that inner voice. What's the final takeaway then? What else can we do?
Ditch the ladder and embrace the journey.
What does that even mean?
Your career path, your life path, whatever. It's not linear. It's an adventure waiting to unfold. There will be detours, discoveries, maybe even a few storms along the way, but that's part of what makes it an adventure.
So true. And the most important thing, if we're ditching the ladder and embracing the journey, is to keep that inner compass close by, right? Trust our instincts and never stop exploring. Well, on that note, that is it for our deep dive into the fascinating world of Robert Greene and mastering your destiny. We hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.